Hello everyone, my name is Ayan Arvind and this is episode 56 of Top 3 Things in Tech. In this episode, we're talking about new tech you might actually use. First off, SpaceX is bringing satellite internet directly to phones. So SpaceX is working with Starlink to eliminate one of the biggest limitations of cellular networks, that you need to be near a cell tower. But Starlink's direct-to-cell technology uses satellites to communicate with specially equipped ordinary smartphones. And the idea is pretty crazy, that your phone could potentially connect to a satellite when you're somewhere without traditional cellular coverage. And that could be particularly useful in places like remote hiking areas, rural regions, oceans, disaster zones, or areas where cell towers have been damaged. And the technology initially focuses on relatively low bandwidth communication such as messaging, rather than turning your phone into a full-speed satellite internet terminal. But the engineering challenge is significant because the satellite is moving rapidly overhead, while your phone has a tiny antenna and very little transmitting power. But Starlink's solution involves putting specialized cellular hardware on satellites and having them function somewhat like cell towers in space. And if this works at a large scale, the distinction between cellular coverage and satellite coverage could start disappearing. Second, Google is using AI to predict how proteins work. So the team behind Google DeepMind developed something called AlphaFold, which made a huge impact on biology as a whole by predicting the 3D structures of proteins. But you may be asking, why is that even important? So proteins are basically tiny molecular machines inside living organisms, and their shape determines how they interact with other molecules. And understanding that shape can help scientists investigate things like diseases, drug targets, and biological processes. So, traditionally determining a protein structure experimentally could take enormous amounts of time. But see, AlphaFold changed the situation by using machine learning to predict structures computationally. And DeepMind has continued developing this idea. See, AlphaFold 3 goes beyond individual protein structures and attempts to model interactions between proteins and other biological molecules, including DNA, RNA, and small molecules. But that matters because biology isn't just, what does this protein look like? It's, what happens when this particular protein can interact with everything around it? And that's significantly closer to understanding how actual systems in biology work. But the broader significance is that AI isn't only generating text and images anymore, it's increasingly being used as a scientific instrument. But last but not least, Microsoft is making a nuclear gamble for AI. So here's one of the stranger developments in the AI boom. Microsoft has been pursuing nuclear power as part of its strategy for supplying electricity to data centers. And the reason is simple. AI data centers consume enormous amounts of electricity. And a traditional data center might consume tens of megawatts. Massive AI facilities can require hundreds of megawatts, and future facilities could require even more. But you can't just keep plugging those into the existing electrical grid without significant infrastructure expansion. And the reason nuclear power is so attractive in this situation is because nuclear plants, they can generate enormous amounts of electricity continuously without producing carbon emissions during operation. And Microsoft has even signed an agreement related to restarting the 3 Mile Island Unit 1 nuclear reactor in Pennsylvania, with plans for the facility to supply power to Microsoft's data center operations. And this also connects to something much bigger. The AI race is becoming an energy race, and building a better model requires chips, computers, data centers, cooling, and hence, electricity. So, companies building AI infrastructure increasingly have to think about power generation itself, and their usage. And see, that's a fascinating shift, because we're seeing something that sounds almost backward. The future of artificial intelligence may depend partly on one of humanity's oldest large-scale technologies, nuclear power. And these three stories that I've told y'all about today, being satellites, biology, and nuclear power, may sound completely different, but there's a common theme here. Technology is increasingly running into physical limits. But if we want internet everywhere, we need satellites. If we want AI to accelerate science, we need better ways to understand bio. And if we want enormous AI data centers, we need enormous amounts of electricity too. So what I'm trying to say here is that the next decade of tech might therefore be less about purely digital breakthroughs and more about combining software with the physics, biology, energy, and even infrastructure. But that's all for today's episode, everyone. See you next time on Top 3 Things in Tech.